You are now live.
Thanks, Janet. Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call to order the November 15th, 2023 Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. I am Jack Eigelman, and I'm the chair of this group. Our meetings continue to be held virtually, but there are many ways for interested parties to participate in this gathering. The City of Asheville's Engagement Hub, which includes a variety of links and phone numbers, can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page of the City of Asheville's website. Visiting this page is the best way to take part in our virtual meetings. As Janet said, remember to keep your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking to minimize feedback and background noise and all of that. I'd like to now welcome all of our commission members. So members, when I call your name, if you will introduce yourself and the interests that you represent. We'll start with Kenny Armstrong, Vice Chair.
Hey, Vice Chair. Currently just at large. I used to sit on the Greenway Committee, but I've rolled off, so I'm just here. But I walk my kids to school in the morning and just taught my son to ride a bike. Yeah, so interested in everything.
Excellent. Thanks, Kenny. Joseph Barker.
Hey, Joseph Barker here. I'm also a member at large. I live in West Asheville, and by day I'm a traffic engineer, so just all the traffic, all the time.
And Joe Chesler.
Yes, good afternoon. Joe Chesler. I'm a resident of West Asheville, retired planner, and assigned to participate in the transit committee.
Excellent, Joe. Bill Loftus.
Hey there, Bill Loftus here. I am on the transit committee.
And Elise Martyr.
Hi, I'm Elise Martyr. I'm an at-large member.
Randy Warren.
Hey Jack, I'm Randy Warren. I'm also at large, primarily a cyclist and pedestrian, but also an occasional transit user.
Excellent. And Mike Sikoski.
Hi, I'm a member at large, live in North Asheville, and I'm a retired civil engineer.
Excellent. Welcome, Mike. And I'm Jack, the chair. And just for your information, I'll be stepping off at 4 o'clock because of a work conflict and handing the gavel to Kenny. And we do have a quorum even without me. So I just wanted, if I disappear at some point, that's where I went. And I'd also like to welcome our non-voting commission members. Elizabeth Lycus Worley will not be here today, but I'd like to welcome Jared. Jared, would you introduce yourself? Oh, did I forget Leanna? Hey, Leanna, I skipped you. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on, Jared. Let's go back to Leanna. Leanna, are you here?
I am here. Thanks. I represent the Greenway, soon-to-be Active Transportation Committee. Maybe that's happened already. The Citizen Advisory Group focused on increasing the availability of infrastructure for pedestrians, bicyclists, and other wheeled human transportation. Thanks.
Thanks, Leanna. Sorry about that. Jared Wheatley, would you introduce yourself?
For sure. I'll be functioning as liaison to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and really just little background. Got 2 kids, both love to ride bikes, ride skateboards. We live downtown, so we get around on all different modes. So glad to play that role.
Awesome. It's great to have you here, Jared. And Maggie Ullman, as you all heard, our liaison will not be here for this meeting. I don't think we have any special guests, but of course it's great to have our City of Asheville staff, Jessica, I think Lucy Crown, and Anna Sexton are in. I'd like to now approve the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the agenda for the November 15th meeting, today's meeting?
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Elise, I'll second.
Any discussion around the agenda, folks? So if there is no objection, are there any objections to the motion to pass the agenda? Okay, if there are no objections, we'll pass the motion. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes from October 25th? Yeah, Joseph.
Yes, I would move to approve. However, I noted the absence of Jared's introduction at that meeting, replacing Joe Archibald. I was curious how you might want to handle that. Even though he wasn't, Jared, I don't think you were confirmed at that time, but you were introduced, and there's no acknowledgement in the minutes of that, Jack. I'm wondering how you might want to handle that. But I would move approval, possibly with an amendment if appropriate.
Yeah, I think, Jared, you're still actually a guest. I don't think you're the appointment as the non-voting member of the commission hasn't been approved yet until tomorrow or your next meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm like heir apparent, I guess. Last time, I think Susan Bean was also going to join the meeting, and it didn't really work out with their schedule, so.
Got it. Well, I would approve, sorry. I would approve or move to approve the minutes as written. Thank you.
Is there a second for the October 25th minutes, folks?
Leanna, I'll make a second.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Leanna. Any other additions or changes to the minutes that should be noted? Are there any objections to the motion to approve the October 25th minutes? Okay, if there's no objection, the motion passes.
Hey, Jack, usually we have to do a roll call. I wasn't sure if that was procedural or not. Seems like overkill to have everybody say aye. But maybe if we have to, we have to.
Yeah, no, Kenny, that's a good question. I spent about 30 minutes looking at Robert's rules, and it looks like it is possible to pass a motion in that format. But I'd be happy to take a vote if folks think that would be better.
No, definitely not.
And I'm certainly no Robert's Rules expert, so I'm open to doing it the right way. Joe, what do you've got a thumbs down? Does that mean you prefer to take a vote?
No, I think move by acclamation is certainly in order.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, that's great. And you all, thank you for pointing that out. We should definitely follow the procedures. However, I do plan to take a vote on other actions that are maybe more consequential. So there are no public comments for this meeting, but we do have some announcements. First one, I just want to point out that our next meeting will not be during the regularly scheduled date. And the date selected instead is December 13th at 3 o'clock to 5. And unfortunately, based on the poll set out to kind of find an alternative time, it was impossible to get it to get 100% attendance. So we selected the date in which we can maximize the number of people attending. So I apologize if you're not able to attend. I just want to point out that we've had, I think, perfect attendance from commission members for I don't know how many meetings, which has been really great. I think that shows a level of engagement and commitment to the service that we're doing. So I'm grateful for that. We won't get that in December, but I think we did discuss maybe whether we just dump that meeting, but I think the will of the group was to keep plowing on, and that's what we'll do. So if you're unable to make it, just let me know so I know. Obviously, if we're unable to have a quorum, that might change things, but at this point we do. And Jessica, did you want to address the Greenway connectors and the Nasty Branch tour?
Sure. Couple things. Just on the previous announcement, I'll just say that I think the only item that we have planned for now is one that I think is important, and a lot of you probably would be interested in. It's bringing forward and highlighting updates to the bike share, e-scooter share plan that have been made. I know you guys have already kind of approved or recommended adoption of that previously, but the second piece to that is starting to have a conversation about changing some of our existing ordinances to allow for micro-mobility devices to be used in bike lanes, and having a discussion about whether we should allow those devices to be used or not on sidewalks in the CBD, and some kind of really important policy questions. And so we're going to come with some recommendations on that. We'll be looking for feedback from you guys, and then we would be taking all of that to the Planning and Economic Development Council Committee in December, maybe January. They've got a really full agenda in December, but that's the only agenda item for that, and I think it could elicit some really good conversation. So if you are able to attend on December 13th, that would be wonderful. Okay, so the next item, Bill.
Pardon me for asking this ignorant question, but could you just give a quick description of what a micro device is?
Teeny tiny devices, just kidding. So, I mean, that's a good question, because one of the things that we have to do is define it, and there is a definition that the Federal Highway Administration has, but essentially what we're talking about is e-scooters, skateboard, one-wheeled, all of these kind of newfangled contraptions that people are using to transport themselves. E-scooters was sort of the original micro-mobility device, but capturing all of those types of things is what I'm talking about when I say micro-mobility.
Thank you.
I've even seen e-roller skates. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of stuff out there. So the next one is, we just wanted to announce, and I didn't put the dates in here, but, well, yeah, skateboards are old school contraptions. We are going to have a couple of Greenway tours that we are planning to hold. One's going to be on December 8th and one is going to be on December 14th. And we have invited council members, and we have invited Southside Neighborhood Community Neighborhood Association. And it's going to be the same tour on both days. And we'll send the details out. But touring the Greenway Connectors project, which were really not Greenway connectors. They're really more like pedestrian improvement, safety improvement, and the future Nasty Branch Greenway in the Southside community. So I think it might be a good opportunity for one or two members of Multimodal Commission to go on one of the tours. I don't know if we want to have all of you guys there with the council members and the Southside community and overwhelm folks, but it might be a good opportunity to have a couple of you guys attend if you're able to.
Do we know dates for those, Jessica?
Yeah, December 8th December 8th at 1 o'clock from like 1 to 4, although I doubt it'll be that long. And then December 14th from 2 to 5 are the 2 dates. Same tour, couple different dates.
Yeah, Jared, you had your hand up. Do you have a question?
Is that tour primarily focused for public information and engagement?
Sorry, it's mostly for, yes, public information engagement for that community and for the council.
Okay.
And I definitely, am sympathetic to the idea of not overwhelming, with the folks there. On the other hand, it does seem like a great opportunity to have members present. Joseph Chesler.
Yeah, Jessica, along that line, Jack was just saying, what's the format? Is it going to be a chartered bus, or is it going to be just meet on site? What are you envisioning for capacity reasons?
What we're envisioning at the moment is potentially having, depending on the number of people, having some like 15 passenger vans. And I think it would be, kind of a stop, start, get out, talk about this piece of a project, get in the van, go to the next part of the project and get out and talk about it. So it's a combination of, the two.
Mike?
What locations will you be going to?
So it is, the project covers Klingman Avenue Extension and Depot Street is one part of the pedestrian improvement project. The Nasty Branch Greenway is, starts at the Grant Center and ends kind of by Livingston and McDowell. I'm sorry, right? Livingston and McDowell, Ashland Avenue. And then the rest of the pedestrian improvement project picks up there and goes toward Biltmore Avenue and McCormick Field. So probably a couple miles, 2.5 miles maybe in length, but we'll have vehicles available as well. And we can send out more details once we get closer to having a set itinerary.
Maybe I'll suggest, and I'm open to this, but might suggest that folks send me an email from the commission of who's, interested and available for either of those dates. So maybe I can, take a look and see what the interest is and work with you, Jessica. Does that make sense, folks? Oh, Mike, you have your...
Yeah, I know one of the ones that you said you're visiting, I guess, is the new MUP that starts at Klingman near Hilliard. And I know that one is not ADA accessible. They just built it and it's a violation of ADA. There's an entrance on one side that has a wheelchair entrance on one side. When you get to the end of it, there's no way to get off. I've got stuck on there several times. You have to turn around and go back the entire length. And the city's been told about that at least a half dozen times, and it's still a clear violation of ADA.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that, so we'll have to chat offline about it.
Do you know which one I'm talking about? They just built those apartments, and it goes from Klingman Avenue to the park. And it starts from Klingman just south of Hilliard, and it winds between the apartment buildings behind the parking lot, and then it stops. And the only way you can get off that is to go off a curb. There's no ramp there.
Okay.
And I don't know how that was allowed to be built. I think the city built it in violation, or they allowed it to be built in violation, but Yeah, that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, Mike, I'd suggest maybe shooting Jessica an email and CCing me on it so we can, address that,
Sure.
on a future date.
Right.
No worries.
This is a different, this is a totally different, these projects haven't been built yet. So this is a preview of what is coming, what it will be built.
So they're not showing any of the existing trails that they've built, so they're not showing any existing trails at all.
No, this is a tour of two specific projects that are about to be constructed.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so folks, shoot me an email directly from the commission if you're interested in attending December 8th or December 14th, and we can work with Jessica, and Ali will share those names with Jessica. That suits folks.
And Lucy. Actually, share them with Lucy.
Yeah, share them with Lucy. Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Yeah, Elise. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right, folks. So we're going to move on to new business. And our first item on the agenda is Greenway wayfinding signage. And I'll read this for folks who may not have the agenda in front of them. Is the Greenway Committee requests for the city to work with the TDA to update the wayfinding signage memorandum of understanding and add wayfinding signage to the greenways. Would someone from the Greenway Committee or who's familiar with this give us just a brief overview? Yeah, Leanna.
I can speak to that. And I'll give a big shout out to Mike Zakowski, who did a lot of the lift on this. Mike went out and inventoried a lot of portals, like trailhead areas or access points to greenways around Asheville, and identified a number of places where it was less obvious that there was this excellent community asset available for folks to take advantage of. And so he documented with pictures and recommended sign information, at least 10 locations where it would benefit us to collectively to have better signage locations, and submitted to the TDA via a grant program last year the request for some support for wayfinding signs. Their response was that they'd be receptive to providing and installing these signs, as they've done in similar locations, but the memorandum of understanding was lapsed between the city and TDA for installation of signs on city property. And thus came about the recommendation from the Greenway Committee for this resolution to the Multimodal Commission to forward their support, hopefully, to the city for funding and installation of signs at Greenway access points that are currently identified and might be identified in the future. Did I miss anything, Mike?
You all questions for Leanna or comments? Yeah, Joseph Chesler.
Yeah, Mike and Leanna, good job. I certainly support this effort. It strikes me as a little odd that the project originally creating the greenways did not include some informational detail for follow-up in completing the project. Is that something that's purposely left out of the contract, Jessica or Lucy? How do you anticipate the public knowing how to use these effectively?
Are we talking about like signage to get to greenways or signage at Greenway trailhead?
As I recall, Mike, your recommendations were primarily while you're on the trail. how to, or what to expect, where to go, how far it is to a key point of interest, as well as just directional signage. Seems
Well,
like it was a
we
missed
don't have,
opportunity.
yeah, we don't have as far as I know, we don't have like a wayfinding standard for a trail at this point. So, I know some of our trails have some signage, especially at trailhead, but yeah, we don't have a consistent wayfinding standard designed for signage on trails that I'm aware of. So that's probably why they haven't been included in original build. Because we would want to have some consistency in what they look like, how they're installed, what they say, things like that.
Lucy, you have your hand up.
I'm just going to support what Jessica said. We don't currently have a design standard for them, although we have been talking about that for a number of years. We have had a hard time finding the supplemental resources and bandwidth to really focus on that. With the Greenway connectors, we'll have very simple wayfinding signs, similar to the ones that are on the French Broad West right now, not tied to the TDA's wayfinding system, that give you the direction and the distance of the next greenways on both of the connectors, each side of Nasty Branch. Nothing fancy, but it'll do the trick.
Yeah, Leanna?
My recollection that in part this request was spawned out of the inspiration from French Broad River West Greenway and the benefit that we felt was derived from the signs there. And it's really an opportunity, I think, to elevate and celebrate the greenways that do exist, recognizing the capacity constraints that exist within the city right now. So we're excited to make the recommendation and look for a positive impact in partnership with TDA if that's something that the city could help us achieve.
Randy.
Yeah, we're in a challenging situation with this because we want there to be some uniformity in the signage. So I was just on the West Greenway and the French Broad River Greenway yesterday and saw those signs and thought they look good, but so we don't want to have different looking signs. So we're putting in signs now and we don't have a standard. That's tough. We should at least have a temporary, like we'll say we'll follow a standard that Atlanta uses or something like that, or some other standard, I guess, for now, until we decide on our own standard, it seems like, because we don't want to have a mishmash of signage all around the city. I know it's a tough situation to be in, but yeah, so it seems like if we could identify some standard, something that we're using, at least in the interim time, and then worst case scenario, we would have two types of signs, the interim standard and then the permanent standard, rather than having perhaps a different signage for every project we do now until we decide a standard.
Yeah, Jared.
Maybe relevant, maybe not be relevant, but I feel like in some cities I've seen specifically wayfinding that almost matches more of like a neighborhood. And that's been interesting to me when I travel to see that versus a uniform over the whole city. And that may be overly complicated. I understand that. But I do think that there's, like you said, having one, two, sometimes that wayfinding can also tell a story about a city as well. Just a thought for folks.
Well, one of the reasons I thought that having the TDA do the signs is they already have a look to their signs. Everybody's seen the TDA signs throughout the city, and they have a very classy, very nice look. And so they would be replicating that look. We might want to choose like a specific color for greenways, and say, hey, can we use the background color of green for the greenways, for instance? But other than that, they have a very standard of what the sign, the font, the support mechanism, all that is already standard. So using the TDA to do that will allow us to continue that standard throughout the city.
Folks, are there any other comments or questions or discussion? I believe there is a proposed motion.
I'd be happy.
I'm ready to.
Oh, go ahead, Elise.
I'm ready to make the motion if there isn't any further discussion. I move that the Multimodal Transportation Commission recommend that the city work with the Tourism Development Authority to include greenway wayfinding signage as part of an updated wayfinding memorandum of understanding.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Leanna, now we'll vote on the item. So committee members, when I say your name, please say aye or nay. Kenny Armstrong.
Aye.
Kenny, was that an aye?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. No,
Aye.
okay. Wanted to make sure. Joseph Barker.
Aye.
Joseph Chesler.
Aye.
Leanna Joyner.
Aye.
Bill Loftus.
Aye.
Lise Martyr.
Aye.
Randy Warren.
Aye.
Mike Zukowski.
Aye.
And Jack Eigelman. I am an aye. And so the motion carries. Any further discussion or questions on this topic?
I guess my only question is, if Jessica has a window into the status of any MOU update and any likely timeline to have any positive outcomes from an updated agreement.
So there was discussion with TDA maybe a year and a half or so ago about the need to update the agreement, and not to necessarily incorporate new signs, but to that plus the fact that some of the existing ones need to change, can be replaced and so on. So the city is aware and the TDA is aware that it needs to be updated. But I don't think that there's been any substantive conversation since then on when and how to get that accomplished. Just in my guess is probably just competing priorities at this time for both organizations, just not having enough time and that not being a top priority for them or for us. So it's on our radar, and I believe the city manager's office is the one that was sort of leading the coordination on that with TDA, but I have not received an update anytime recently, but we can reach out to the city manager's office and ask them if they have any new information that we can provide.
Jessica, is there any sensible way that the commission can support your work on, greenway wayfinding signage? Like, what makes sense that keeps us from getting in your way, but might support the work y'all are doing? Do you have a suggestion?
I don't think anything at this time. I mean, I think, like I said, we know that it needs to be updated. We know that we want to, incorporate additional layers of signage. And I think, if there is an existing design for greenway specific signage, trail specific signage, and if TDA has the ability or the funding ability to do that, I think like they said, I know they would be interested. It's just a matter of prioritizing that over some other things. So I don't think there's anything that you guys need to do. I think the motion is helpful because when we get to the point of updating that agreement, we can, point to that support, and it might end up being a future application that the city does for one of their grants. It just depends on what the city manager's office wants to do.
Well, thank you, Jessica. Yeah, Mike, your hand is raised. Go ahead.
So where does this go now? Does this go to email to the city council? Does this go onto the consent agenda? What happens to? So do we need to have a motion that goes onto the consent agenda to get approved?
No. So you guys are advisory body to the city council. And so when you make a motion or a recommendation, your city council liaison takes that information to the council. Occasionally they will email the rest of the council. It's kind of their role to forward that information to the rest of the council. The council is the ones that decide whether or not it is a priority and it should be added to a work program. So, you know, it doesn't automatically become a work program item for staff. It's information provided that this is something that the commission would like the council to pursue.
I know in the past on the aesthetics committee, if we had a recommendation to the city council, we would put it on the agenda, and it would get voted on or it could be disapproved. Since the committees report to the city council, not to the city manager like you guys do. So it makes sense. It makes sense that we need to make sure that it gets to the people we report to, which is the city council, as opposed to the city staff.
Well, I think this is going to have to be another conversation, maybe at our retreat, what the order of operations and the flow is. But that's not generally how it works.
Yeah, I agree.
The I-26 project is different.
Yeah, I think it'd be a sensible conversation for us to have at the retreat. I think talking about process will be really useful. So thanks for raising the point, Mike. Thanks for your response, Jessica. I want to move on to unfinished business, but I do want to thank Mike and Leanna for bringing, and the Greenway Committee for discussing this and bringing it forward to us. So next item on the agenda is under unfinished business, and that's an update on a new direction regarding city-county joint transit plan. And this is an informational item, and we have a presentation. Jessica, I think this is you. You're muted.
Oops, sorry about that. Let me share. And we're looking for feedback on this. But we wanted to, well, there's several new folks, so some of it might be new information for people, but for those of you that have been around for a little bit longer, we wanted to come back and talk a little bit about some changes in direction that we need to make, and to a couple of our big projects. Well, really it's just one project, and I'll go through it, but we're looking for some input from you guys. Nothing has been like fully baked yet, so to speak, and we'll be coming back with more information about specifics, but this is just kind of like a high level overview of some changes that we're looking to make in some of our work program items. And so this is transit specific stuff. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the transit committee meeting earlier, so you guys are hearing it before the transit committee, but the intention is that their meeting on Tuesday will be giving the same information and getting feedback from them as well, and communicating what we hear from you guys. We will communicate that to them as well. Okay. So just to start, I wanted to talk a little bit about organizational work program and what those projects are for transit, and what I mean when I talk about organizational work program. And then I want to talk about the two main projects that we are going to be developing the scopes of work for and putting out for RFPs early in the year, so the last half of this fiscal year. So our key takeaways from this presentation are that the transit division, which has 4 people, but we have 2 vacancies right now, so we're half staffed right now in transit. We have 2 significant organizational work program projects. And we do plan to have those projects be consultant supported, but they are going to require a lot of staff time in addition to other departments' staff time. And we will be providing, these 2 projects are going to be very important for getting a lot of the needed information we need to, I think, make some really good progress in our transit system and transit program. And they also have relationships to a lot of other goals and strategic objectives that the city has. And you'll see this when I talk about each of these projects, how they relate to council strategic priorities, such as the priority to expand and improve core services and improve and make additional affordable housing, better access to affordable housing. Okay, so, and feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer questions throughout the presentation if you'd like. But
Jessica?
Oh yeah.
Just so I'm clear on your terminology, what are core services defined as, please?
You know, I don't know that the city has a definition. Kind of wish we did, but I think in my mind, core services are those basic services that the city provides, such as trash pickup, sidewalk maintenance, street repaving. I think transit is a core service. It's a major core service. An example of something, I mean, a lot of people could make arguments that a lot of things are core services, but I think of like those very standard functions that are expected of us as city servants.
With respect to transportation, not police, fire, and EMT and all that's education, those things.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
Well,
you.
yeah. Okay. And if I can clarify that more, I'll try. So a couple years ago, the city internally started an organizational work program. So the thought behind that was to say, can we track and report and highlight the projects that across the organization as a whole are the most significant in terms of strategic goals, and they require multiple departments to be involved and at the table. They hit multiple objectives. There's high council interest, things of that nature. So our department has 4 projects identified as organizational work program projects. That doesn't mean that everything else we do is not important. It's just that these 4 are ones that we are really trying to prioritize and dedicate a lot of time to. 2 of our 4, for example, one of them is the GAP plan implementation, which is huge, right? Like GAP plan implementation is going to take forever. It's something we're constantly working on, but that is an organizational work program project because it requires lots of cross-departmental communication. Different aspects of it are implemented by different departments. There's policy, there's, priorities. It's a big thing. The other one that's not necessarily super exciting, but our parking garages, guys have probably seen on the news that our parking garages need some attention and maintenance. That is an organizational work program item for our department, is taking care of that and then budgeting for the future. The other two are transit specific. One of them is what we had previously thought we were going to undertake with the Buncombe County, and that was going to be a joint transit plan effort. And the city council budgeted some funds for it. And then unfortunately, the county did not. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to work with them, but we have to take a little bit different direction because of that decision. And I'll talk more about that. The second project that's transit related, that's an organizational work program, is Art Place, and that is related to building a new transit center, and the property that we purchased a few years ago next to the transit center, make a bigger transit center, have it include affordable housing, and be a large-scale mixed-use project. Big project, multi-year kinds of things we're talking about. So, okay, hold on. Okay, so the city county transit master plan, I mean, we came to you guys and talked to you guys about it at least once or twice. We talked to lots of different groups about it. And the intention was for us to work with Buncombe County. We were going to do a very intensive outreach and analysis of transit needs and how we could improve across the county the quality, the accessibility, but also the financial sustainability of public transit in the city and the county. And it was going to be a joint effort with their staff, our staff, lots of public outreach and such. Unfortunately, the county commissioners had some other things that they felt were a higher priority, and so they weren't able to dedicate their share of funding towards the effort. So what we want to do is, in many ways it's similar, but it's going to be more inwardly focused and really just looking at what our current operations are. And when I say operations, I also mean our finances, and not just from an operational standpoint, but our fleet, our facilities, because, you know, every year our expenses go up for transit, and we have a lot of needs that are not outwardly facing, like we need a new garage. We really do need to have a new transit center. And we need to have new buses, and we are, I think, falling short in a lot of ways, not just from a service perspective, but from a facility perspective to support growing that service. And we need to have those pieces in place and that picture painted, so to speak, so that everyone can be on the same page about what we're doing and where we're going. So we're not really wanting to redo the transit master plan. The transit master plan still holds a lot of really good recommendations about service improvements and priorities, but it never was based in a reality when it comes to the financial side and the facility side. What is it needed to add frequency? What is needed to increase the number of routes you have? And so we want to make sure that council and the public are, you know, everybody is kind of at the same level of understanding of what we have now, and then if and when we can grow our service like the transit master plan suggests, what is it going to take for us to be able to sustain that? Because we were the last 2 years, we have had to use ARPA funds to balance the transit fund. And so that's not a great position to be in, right? When you're using one-time stimulus dollars to fund an ongoing operation, that's not necessarily a good thing. So what we want to do is use this opportunity to analyze our operations and see if there are any immediate things that can be done to save or to become more efficient. Not talking about cutting anything, just trying to see if there is a fresh look at our current service, our current fleet, whether or not different size vehicles might be appropriate for a route. Can we get more use out of our electric buses if we change something? That's kind of what we're looking at with this change of direction, is less of a visioning and more of a deep dive on our current service and our current situation. So, I think in some ways it's not the most exciting kind of process, but I think it could still have a lot of benefits for us. I think for me, what I was hoping to get out of the city-county joint project, one of the key things for me was trying to paint that picture of our financial plan and like, what is it? What are we spending? What is it going to take us to financially be able to sustain this service and grow it? And I think with this, we can still get to that point, because what we need to do is set the stage for finding additional revenue sources and partnerships. And that, I think, can be accomplished with this as well. And we also would hopefully be able to take some immediate steps if there are recommendations for positive, practical efficiencies that we could implement. We can do that. We can do that quickly. So it's also a less staff time intensive process, because it definitely wouldn't be as extensive, and it just wouldn't be as extensive in terms of like the outward facing pieces of it as the previous idea was, to go and do a kind of a county-wide transit planning, visioning thing.
Pardon me, Jessica. Randy has his hand up and has a question for you.
Go for it.
Thanks. So it sounds to me, tell me if I'm wrong here, it sounds to me like we allocated some money, the city council or whoever allocated some money, the county didn't. And so we're disappointed in that. But since we have this money, and also we have a great, I think our transportation master plan is really good. We spent so much time on that, so much time, right? And it's good, but we just don't have the money to implement it. It's great ideas. And then of course COVID threw, and Mike, you mentioned that too. So it sounds to me like you're saying, you have this money, let's not use it, and let's figure out, keep the transportation master plan. That's what we want, but we can't do it right now. So let's just figure out, since we have this money, let's figure out some things that we can do right now just to make the system better. Because I think we all agree that there's so much more we can do, and we have a good plan for it. But at this point in time, we're kind of stuck, except for now, it's almost like we got this money that we didn't plan on because we thought we were going to use it for something else. And let's use it to now make the system as best we can with a small amount of money and with the resources we have, but at least do what we can. Is that what, right?
Yeah, and I think part of the scope would likely also include taking the recommendations from the transit master plan, which I still think are great. And we can do a transit master plan overview for you guys at some point, but it had a whole slew of recommendations of service increases and improvements that could be done. And it was a 10-year plan, and the first year was really front loaded. It was like, this year one is going to increase service by 40%. And we increased service by 25%, which is huge. But to go farther than that, it's just been, it's financially unfeasible. We don't have enough bus resources. We don't have enough places to store buses at our garage. So it's like, there's some other things that aren't as sexy and fun that need to be in place before we can grow the system even more. And oh, by the way, we need a bunch of money to do that as well. So what I think this will be very useful for us. It's not a waste of that $300,000 of resource. We also have to do a new RFP for our service at the end of this year. We have to put that RFP out probably in the next 6 to 8 months. And so that's going to be useful for that as well. So it's not exactly what everybody wanted with this partnership with the county, but I think this is still going to be a very useful and necessary thing for the city. Because at the end of the day, this is it's a city service that the city is paying for and city residents are paying for. So we need to do the best we can with it. But I will say, let me go to my next slide. Like doesn't mean that we're like not talking to the county and not working with them. We've actually been meeting semi-regularly to talk to them about other ways that we might be able to move forward and find things that we can partner on, which may even mean just getting more financial contribution from the county, or it might mean something else. But we have been meeting with them, and we're going to be doing a facilitated kind of staff level session with them to talk about our common goals. And it may result in some things that could be incorporated into this coming fiscal year budget, or it might result in other longer term partnerships. It might end up that we all decide, okay, yeah, we really do need to do a plan together. But I think it's going to take some time to get everybody on the same page. And clearly we weren't all on the same page previously. So, Jack.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, I did like your mention of perhaps and I might be getting ahead of myself for the retreat, but I'm doing some work around, informing people about the transit master plan. Like that could be a good activity. So I'll just drop that seed there. But folks, I am going to be signing off and handing the gavel to Kenny. So thanks everyone. And I'll see you soon in December.
Thanks. Okay. So that's that part. So that's the one organizational work program project. I'll talk about Art Place, and then we can have more discussion and questions. So Art Place is what we're calling the future development of the new transit center mixed use project. And this is, at our current transit center, which is very constrained. The city purchased with, in partnership with Dogwood Health Trust, we purchased 50 Ashland Avenue, which is directly next to it. We rent out parking spaces at the moment there, but the purpose of that acquisition of that property was to build a new transit center and have it be a more of a mixed use project. Dogwood Health Trust helped us pay for that purchase under the condition that there be affordable housing, some kind of affordable housing incorporated into the future project. We have a blank slate essentially. We know we want to have a new transit center, and we know we want to have affordable housing, and we probably want some other stuff in that building, on that property. So we need to go through a process with the community, I'm going to call it community collaboration rather than engagement, because our intent is to work with transit riders, advocacy group, and really talk to folks about what kinds of things they would like to see, not only as part of the new transit center, but what other kinds of services or uses would be great to see at that site. Could be additional community space. It could be a grocery store. You know, it's kind of a blank slate, like I said. So a visioning process would be a huge part of this eventual project. We have a grant from Federal Transit Administration to do some of that work. We asked for a lot more funding, and we got 365, which is great. Like, not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, but there's a lot of things that need to be done between blank parking lot and development. And so we're going to use those funds to take some steps to get us to there, but there will be other things that will be needed to get to a design where we're ready to design a building. So what we're wanting to do with this funding is two major things. The first thing is something that we really should be doing more consistently, maybe every 5 to 7 years, and that is to do a statistically valid survey of riders and non-riders. And that kind of survey they sort of did one before the transit master plan, but this would be something that we would hope to repeat every 5 to 7 years and be able to track trends and say, what is our usage? Who are our customers? What is the level of satisfaction with the service? Also talk to folks that don't currently ride the bus and see what is it that might change their mind. So this kind of survey is done very routinely in other places for other transit agencies. It's not a super inexpensive thing to do because it is a statistically valid survey. So they've got to get a lot of responses in order to make sure that it is statistically valid. But that information is very important and can also be used for the comprehensive operations analysis as well, and other things that we want to do in transit. So that will be one big component of the grant funds that we use, and will help us with our place, because that's going to be, it's going to be the center of the system and for the foreseeable future. And then the second piece would be that big visioning component where we would do a ton of community outreach and engagement, talk about priorities and what kinds of other uses could be co-located there. So this grant fund will get us closer to getting ready to design a building, but we still have a long way to go, I think. And this in particular, I do think this would be a great future candidate for not only additional federal transit grant, but maybe TDA. So, we're trying to make some steps that will position us for future grants as well.
Jessica, Bill.
We got some hands.
Yeah.
Bill, you want to go first?
Sure. I got at least one, maybe two questions. So there's two pots of money, right? There's $300,000 that you got from the budget last year for something that is going to change because the county didn't agree. And then you got the $365,000 grant. So those are the two pockets of money that you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 300, when does that start getting eaten up? Is it with the assignment of a consultant, or is it already starting to be spent, or what's the status of that $300,000?
That 300 nothing's been spent yet. It would be when we hire a consultant. So it doesn't, like, I don't charge my time to a specific pot of funds. It would just be for external expenses.
Okay, got it. So whenever that consultant comes on board is when we'd start spending that money. Is that right?
Right, exactly.
When do you think that might be, if you don't mind just putting your crystal ball on?
Well, I think it kind of depends a little bit on having some more conversations with you guys and with council, because like I said, we're still kind of at a high level right now. We haven't written a scope.
Okay.
Our next step would be, after we get some of the preliminary feedback, we would start to actually write a scope. I would imagine we would bring that back to you guys in some form, maybe not like actual Word document, but like, this is the things that we expect to include in this. And then once we have consensus on that, we would put it out to bid or to RFP. If we were able to put out an RFP by March, that would be my goal. I know that sounds like a long time, but I also want to go to Planning and Economic Development Committee and get their input.
Okay, that's good. Okay,
that helps.
That's very helpful. So I'll go ahead with my second question. If our place is around a development and housing and stuff, but related to ridership, why would you not make the rider survey funds, whatever they might be, there's a subset of the 365 that's a survey, right? So let's just say for talking purposes, it's half of it. Why wouldn't you take that half and apply it to the transit consultant as opposed to a development project for housing? Because that's totally around ridership. And we don't have any riders now that have a housing supported need. So I'm not sure why you're not applying more funds to a transit consultant, albeit the survey, as opposed to taking the survey and applying that to the housing. Why are you doing it that way?
You know, it's funny that you asked that, Bill, because after I sent this out yesterday, I was thinking like, we might end up doing it that way.
Okay.
But the way that my brain was thinking about it is like these two sets of funds, and especially with the federal grant funds, like when we applied for those for a specific thing, and we said we were going to do some, we did say that we were going to do a rider survey as part of that.
Right.
And so we've said through that process and with our grant application that was awarded that we would do that. But in reality, what might end up happening is that it could all end up being one RFP that's funded with two different sources, or it might be that that the transit consultant does do the rider survey portion and it's funded with half of the grant fund. So we're trying to pair these efforts so that they're leveraging each other and these two different funding sources. But when I put this presentation together, I was thinking like, here's what we're going to do with this 300 and here's what we're going to do with this 300, but it's really meant to be kind of together.
Okay. Yeah. I think the most important thing from a structural perspective is to make sure that whoever's doing consulting work on the transit has input in what the survey questions are, because that's critical for their work.
Absolutely.
So if you end up starting with it split and they're not involved, then you'd end up with less of you'd be sub-optimized, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks
you're
for
muted.
all these.
Or wait, no, you're not.
Yeah, thanks
Go
for all
ahead.
these updates, and I'm trying to get my head around it, so I might ask some remedial questions. I'm not that familiar with Art Place. Is it conceivable to get a copy of the proposal to Dogwood and FTA so that we have a better sense of the project scope in general? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, actually what I could give you that I probably should have done is whenever we have a project of this scale, we have to do what the city called a charter. So we have a charter for this project that explains what it is, what's the purpose, who are the people that are going to be impacted. It's like maybe like a 4 or 5 page summary that
does that include kind of a detailed budget? I guess I'm also curious. I mean, like, this sounds like a really significant redevelopment project, and so so my follow-up question too, in the budget arena, is which department is leading the redevelopment pertaining to the multi-use development? That doesn't seem like a transit department responsibility, and yet it seems like there's some navigation here. And so can you speak to the division of work?
So this will be a multi-department effort, and the redevelopment piece of it, once it gets to that stage where we're getting closer to knowing what a design would look like and who would build it, because it could be a private partnership project that ends up developing it, but it will transition to probably a different department as a project manager. But at the end of the day, it's always going to have a strong transportation component. And in bigger cities, it's very common for a transit transportation department to be kind of the figurehead lead of a transit-oriented development, which is what this would end up being. It's a housing mixed use. It could have retail. It could have all those things, but it is centered on the fact that it's going to be a transit station. So we'll always have our hat in the ring for it. And right now it is transit focused, but we're going to be working with planning and economic development. We're going to be working, with community and economic development and planning and urban design. Those two departments at this time have already been involved in this project, and will be working with us.
Okay. And then just thinking about, I'm going back to the previous project topic in your presentation. So just I think probably some of the sequence flow related to multimodal commission, getting this before transit, is due in part to Thanksgiving and our readjusted schedule. So I can respect for seeing it beforehand. I also really count on my colleagues and peers here in this space to be able to hear it and think and cogitate and bring back some really good information. I really value their perspective, and so would voice my support for sequence and flow related to the committees that inform this commission. And then I guess the question I have around the operations analysis is, particularly being in the position where we were applying ARPA funds to balance our transit expenses, and the hazards of planning alone, particularly when we're aiming to plan financials down the road. It almost feels like we aren't solving the problem we're setting out to solve, given the constraints of the situation that we're in. And so I guess I'm struggling to understand if I know you have to plan in order to do the thing to fix the stuff that you have to identify that's broken. But part of me is like, is that just the most efficient use of funds? And is there another path forward?
Right. For which fund?
Well, I
city
think it's
fund?
kind of like paying consultants to tell us that we have deficiencies in a building and lack of capacity, it's kind of like, is there a better use of funds that we could immediately deploy in lieu of hiring consultants to tell us what we need, right? That tell us what we know. And then be more thoughtful about how we do co-plan around, financials and full system function with the county and with partners to achieve, I think, the stated goals that you've articulated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something that we've wrestled with too, is, and I do think that there is a level of technical analysis that will go into especially the route analysis and the fleet analysis that is beyond the skill set capabilities of my staff and me, that will hopefully tell us things that we don't already know. There is a component of it that is kind of telling us stuff we already know, which is like we're spending more money than we have. And I think, but for various reasons, I think that message hasn't really gone out widely, and it hasn't been absorbed as fully as it may need to. And so I think it's necessary for us to have and a lot of times we need a third party perspective to kind of solidify things in the public's mind. So I hear you, and that's a concern that we've heard previously. So, and we can share that with Planning and Economic Development Committee, which is the council, 3 members of the council, next month. Mike?
Yes. Has there been any discussion within the city about reaching out to the VA to provide veterans housing as part of this project?
Not at this point, no. So this is for the art place. Art place, we have not engaged anybody yet. Like that could be part of the process with this grant fund and I want it to be where we're engaging with groups such as the VA, Nana Food Bank. I mean, everybody that has a relationship to transit and transit service and housing is going to be part of the engagement for that project.
Because I was with the city of Long Beach, and we got quite a bit of grants for VA housing, but they have some very specific requirements on the size of the units and what's in the unit and everything like that, because most of them are ADA accessible. So they do have money, but it's somebody you need to bring into the discussion fairly early on so that you meet their requirements.
Okay. No, that's good. That's great. Thank you. Okay. So I know that was a lot to absorb. It won't be the last time we talk to you guys about it. I expect to have steering committee or committees as we go through this project. So we will come back. We'll come back to you guys with more regular updates, especially after we hear from the council on it. Right now we're scheduled to talk to PED on the 11th, but they also have like 6 other agenda items that are equally as important. So I have a feeling I might get bumped to January. But then after we get some of that initial feedback, we would draft scopes of work and get some feedback again. So I want to make sure that we have kind of this loop of making sure that everybody's comfortable with the plan moving forward. That's it. That's all I've got on those 2.
Thanks, Jessica. So you anticipate both of those projects working in tandem, I suppose, and maybe a little concurrently and sharing with the survey analysis? And
Yes, I do.
okay. My big fear is that it turns into a design and a plan, and we spend the money and we get it a vision for it, and then nothing happens moving forward. So fingers crossed. I think it's a great idea. And you're not moving the existing transit hub downtown. That's kind of existing as it is, and this is adjacent to it, or is it everything on the table?
We wouldn't move. I don't think that we would move the main transit hub. So I don't think we would move it to a different location downtown, because, and we talked about that. Do we want to invest in buying the parking lot next to it? What if we move the transit center? And it's like, well, I think we're always going to have a need for a transit center downtown. We may have other hubs in a system, in a future system, and where are you going to find another acre or so to do it? So having this property next to the existing one, we can combine those properties and redevelop and you continue to use the existing transit center while a new one is being built potentially. So I feel very fortunate that we were able to purchase that property, given that it's abutting the existing transit center. And I do feel you're here about, developing a plan and not moving forward with it. I will say that there are so many transportation related grant opportunities. And as Mike said, there are affordable housing opportunities. I feel confident that this project will become a reality. Can I say that it's going to happen it's going to be completely built in 10 years? I don't know, but I do think that we will find funds for it for sure.
Okay, great. Thanks for the presentation. And I echo the consideration of trying hard to fit us after transit and after active transportation if schedules allow. Any other questions for Jessica? If not, we'll move on.
Please.
I don't really have a question so much as just a comment to put some things in perspective. I agree with what a lot of people have said about preferring that the funds would go for more immediate needs. But I just looked at the numbers a little bit, and $300,000 is about 2% of the transit budget. And I was looking at the proposed budget as you were giving the presentation. The proposed budget for next year is about 14 million, which is a 10% increase from last year. So I just wanted to call out those numbers as, if this goes through, we're looking at a 10% increase over last year, and we're talking about 2% of the budget.
Yeah, I can't even buy one bus with 300,000. It wouldn't, unfortunately, it wouldn't have a huge impact operationally. And so it's more, these are dollars that we're thinking more about the future. Yeah.
And Jessica, before we move on, can you tell us, without getting too political, what happened with the county and why they decided to pull out? Was it more like we were trying to get them on board and they decided not to, or was it we were both on board and they stayed in the end?
I honestly, I think it was not enough communication between the different levels of people involved. So I think that there were conversations that staff was having, our staff, their staff, their city manager, our city manager, their council, their commission. And there was never enough like cross-pollination. Like I wish we could have had a lot of those conversations in the same room together. And so I think at the end of the day, it was just I think they were not completely understanding of what the intent was. And also I think that there were just other competing needs that they felt like they needed to invest in. So I think they still think that transit is important, but I think it's more communication would have probably helped.
That's true for most things in life.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. The next unfinished business item, and this is an action item that we'll need a motion on, is to formally adopt, or I guess recommend to City Council to adopt the Active Transportation Committee Rules of Procedure, which we looked at last time, and this is slight tweaks to get it just right. So yeah, any discussion, or I welcome a motion to adopt. And Jessica, if there's anything, or Lucy, anything to point out here?
I think I tried to capture the comments from last time and incorporate those. So we incorporated language about ADA accessibility. We included, clarified some of the language that was confusing about appointing and qualifying. I think, minor changes were made, and hopefully we were able to reflect every comment that we received from you guys last time.
Well, great. Yeah, this kind of feels like it took a while to get here, but we're here. This is great. And I will point out that there's the committee, the Active Transportation Committee, is 7 to 11 members. So if anybody knows anybody who's interested in serving, it's a great committee to be a part of. So, although, well, who knows? It's a brand new committee. Yeah, any discussion or comments before we make some kind of motion? All right. Anybody want to make a motion?
This is Joe. I'll move.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Second?
As presented.
Second.
Okay. As presented, the motion is to adopt the Active Transportation Committee Rules of Procedure. All right. Great. Let's do a roll call. My vote is aye. I guess next on my list is Joseph Chesler.
Aye.
Other Joseph, Mr. Barker.
Aye.
Leanna.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Elise.
Aye.
Randy.
Aye.
And Mike.
Aye.
Great. All unanimous. Motion carries. Next item is a review of the permanent right-of-way closure policy information, which I'm curious about. Is there a change, or are we just kind of keeping this on everybody's radar?
Yeah, I just wanted to put into the agenda, and I can go through it if you guys want me to, some of the policy and background information that is related to right-of-way closures that come to you guys. And, there's a lot of new folks. And so I want to make sure, because this is something that comes to you regularly, that everyone has sort of the background information about it and why we do it, and what are kind of our parameters around it as well. And so what's in your agenda, and I'm going to just keep these documents in your agenda at the end, where you've got kind of links to other important documents. We'll include this here too, so you can always refer back to it if you'd like. And basically what we've got here is the state law that govern to some extent the process that we have to follow. it is, unfortunately or fortunately, it says that we can only really look at these requests from the lens of whether it has a negative public impact, or makes it so that someone can't access their property. And so it can be frustrating sometimes when we get these requests and we don't necessarily have all of the information that we'd like to know, like, why is this request being made? What are they going to build? What are they going to do? We try to get that information from applicants, but they're not required to provide it to us. We can't, the other kind of frustrating thing about these processes is that we can't impose conditions. So we can't say, well, the city will approve this right-of-way closure if you provide a greenway in return. We can't have conditions attached to these decisions. And so what we've tried to do with our policy is to say, here are some of the characteristics that we should look at when we're considering a right-of-way closure, but we have to kind of keep it at the level of, is it going to create a negative public impact? Do we have enough information to know that? And we can't really judge it from the perspective of what is the applicant wanting to do with it. So we can't require that they provide a site plan or tell us that they're going to build affordable housing. We can't view it from that angle. But we're really looking at it, trying to look at it from a transportation connectivity standpoint. And I think we're doing a good job at that. I just wanted to, make sure that everybody was aware of the policy, aware of the state law, and kind of that mindset that went into creating the policy and the process that we have now around that. Especially for those of you that are newer and weren't here when we developed it. Happy to answer any questions. If you guys want to just read through some of the stuff and then email me questions, I'm happy to meet with anybody if they want to get more information.
I think I remember some of the past discussions revolved around, like you said, not knowing what the plan was for the adjacent property. And
right.
It's a considerable amount of money to apply for a right-of-way closure. So I feel like the onus is on the applicant to provide as much information as possible in order to get a favorable response. So it's kind of like the more information you give us, the more likely it is we'll respond in a way that's favorable to you. So that's kind of where we are. I was wondering about, does the application process ever start from the city's perspective? Like, do you ever say, hey, we should close this right away and move that forward?
Yeah, actually, let's see, not too long ago, and Lucy will remember that, well, I think we're about to hopefully build this, but there was an unopened right-of-way near, I'm probably going to say it wrong, Curtis Creme Brewery, is that the right one? Swannanoa, yeah. South side of Swannanoa. That's it. Mm-hmm. There was an unopened right-of-way there that we did a little bit of a land exchange with that property owner. So we closed that right-of-way so that he could use it for parking. He gave us a different part of land to use for the greenway. That was a mutually beneficial thing. So that was one that the city initiated, and there's been another one somewhat recently that I can't remember, but yeah, it's something that we have initiated, but it's most likely that they will be initiated by developers, property owners, as our land in the city gets more, less and less available. This is what we're seeing is folks trying to take advantage in a positive way, I think, in many instances of better utilizing land that's nobody's using. Our purview to make sure that we're not foregoing any opportunities for public benefits.
Well, great. Thanks I think it's a great idea to include this information in our agenda packets at all times. And Leanna?
I have a slight recommendation, and the danger in that is that it almost sounds like I'm volunteering. But, you know, I did review the policy guidance and some of the questions answered by legal. Thank you so much for including that and including it in the permanent like resources area. I can envision like an easy, quick flowchart decision matrix could really ease this committee's workload, because it would really be yes, no, yes, no, yes, no to reach the conclusion, which is quite frankly, perhaps, you know, it might expedite our conversation making. I don't know if staff capacity, if staff have the capacity for that. If not, if you want to ask me, I could volunteer to review the policy and see about putting that in there. So let me know, because if you come up with good ideas, sometimes you have to execute them. But I just think that might help us. So small recommendation.
Leanna, are you talking about from the transportation perspective, like our role?
I think it relates to like, what does the policy say about what we are reviewing for, right? And if we have a specific lens, then we should just be applying our specific lens and not getting mired in other things, perhaps. So you know, I guess it depends on how full-throated our review needs to be as to what is factored into that decision matrix.
Yeah, so you're thinking kind of taking the policy and
dumbing it down,
synthesizing it into a checklist / flow chart, something that dumbs it down.
I mean, that's
paired, right? And like as a pairing for the policy itself. It's like we have a procurement policy for the city that's like 400 pages long, and then there's a flow chart that
that's all I'm thinking is like if we had a simple flow chart that just simplified our process, it could go a long way toward maybe easing what can often be lengthy conversations and can keep us like operating within the guidance that is outlined that, you know, maybe not everybody has read in depth or remembers in detail.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's a great idea. Let me put some thought into that, and maybe we can do something without having to ask for your volunteer hours.
I think it's hard from our perspective because our mandate is, you know, looking at it as a possible pedestrian connection, and through my eyes, a lot of these would be, you know, possible pedestrian connections. So it's hard to say, you know, with each one, like, no, but you know, having staff involved in this process is really helpful because you can say, well, from our perspective, this is never going to become something that you might think it was. Like the last discussion, you know, the topography and the neighborhood support wasn't there, and so it just didn't make sense. And so I think you're right. I think having some kind of like, no, let's remember to think about this and this and this, but not get mired into the weeds. It's also really helpful having the applicant come to these meetings and talk to us about it and get their take on it, rather than just looking at an application and guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jessica. Any other comments before we move on? All right. Thanks, Jessica. Next item, Jack Eigelman is going to talk about the annual retreat, but he's not here. I spoke with Jack a little bit about it. We're starting to brainstorm ideas and flow of each meeting, but they are concrete now. We've got them locked in, I think. January 19th, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then February 3rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The first is a Friday. The second one is a Saturday. And we're going to be doing it at the municipal building, which is the fire station right by Pack Square, and it's right above the big fire doors. There's an elevator, there's stairs to get up. Yeah, the retreat concept board from 2021 was really interesting. It just kind of exploded. A lot of information there. I recommend everybody looking at that before we start thinking about our own retreat, and kind of if there's any gems in there that you want to move forward and keep thinking about and keep talking about. I think that's really important. Jack talked to me about the flow of each meeting, and there will be some structure and then a lot of open-ended discussion, as well as an equity training, which is something that has come up. Like, how do we as a commission think about equity in our decision making? So that'll be part of it as well. Jessica, is there anything else we should know?
We will provide breakfast for that first one, lunch for the second one. We'll send out in advance, we'll send out a menu or something for you guys to choose from. But that'll be probably in January. So we will feed you and give you coffee and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I hope everybody can attend. I know we kind of pulled the dates, but you know, things come up, and hopefully as many people as possible will show up. And Jack will be reaching out soon about ideas for getting our creative juices flowing. The next item is informational as well. Follow up on the letter of recommendations that we as a commission sent to NCDOT regarding the bicycle facilities implemented on Merriman Avenue. Jessica, was there an update? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick update. We did the day after the last meeting with you guys, we had our regular meeting with DOT, and so we gave them that letter, copy of it in paper form, and emailed it to them, talked about it. And one of the follow-up items that that has happened since then is they've invited staff, including public works staff, to participate in like a final walkthrough with them. So I expect that we will talk about whether there's opportunity to incorporate some striping changes as part of a final path. We're going to look at curb ramps and things as well, because I think there's maybe some issues with some curb ramps that I've seen. But they also, I know that they do plan on adding at a minimum, they're going to add some more bike symbol pavement marking, and some signage, I believe. But more than that, I think it's going to be discussion we'll have after that walkthrough with them. We told them that there was an interest from Multimodal about potentially having a meeting. And I think that DOT is open to that. But my suggestion is let's wait until after that walkthrough that staff does with them, see if we can make some progress there and see where we are. Randy.
Yeah, thanks. So I went and rode yesterday because I noticed there have been some modifications made, and there have been. They actually, since our last meeting, they've added some bike lane symbols, and they've also added some paint, solid line on the right side of the bike lane when it gets really wide. So, so those are improvements, although it's real after the fact, kind of like, oops, we should have done things differently. Because sometimes now the bike lane symbol isn't in the middle of the bike lane anymore because they added on that right curb line and stuff like that too. So it's obvious that they didn't have a plan, which I think we've known that, even though they said, they haven't responded, we've asked them about their plan. It's obvious they didn't have a plan, and so they're trying to catch up. And so some things they've done is making it better. It's still a long ways to go. Some things they've done have made it confusing, like they've skip dashed the left side of the bike lane and didn't skip dash the right side when it has a intersection. So things like that don't make sense still. And there are no signs still saying the bike lane is beginning and ending, things like that. But they did do something to make it better. So I don't know if that was a response to things we said, or if they went out there and looked at it and said, okay, because it's yeah. So it is better, but again, I'd still love a chance to go out there, and it'd be great if I'd love to be the person walking with them saying, why'd you do this, or what's up with this, or what standard are you following when you do this, because it's and also too, we definitely don't want the clock started yet in terms of evaluation, because it's nowhere, it's still being developed and it's not near done. And it's just, again, if they can establish some kind of standards, or maybe not establish standards, but follow standards that are already established and do things the first time rather than this, year long now. Last year was supposed to be done by Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving next week and it's still not done. It's just discouraging. But I did want to report though, that they have done some things in response and it is better, but it's still ways to go.
Right. Well, thank you for taking a look at that. And in lieu of maybe you attending, maybe you could send me an email with some bullet points about some of those issues that you're seeing still. I wasn't aware of the skip mark thing. So yeah. I'm going to be on that walkthrough with them. I'm definitely going to go.
Okay. Yeah, no, we have to talk to you beforehand about it.
Okay. Mike?
Yes, I've been in contact with Nathan Moneyham from DOT about some of the ADA ramps that are in violation. I've identified several of them to him, but I would highly suggest you go out with a smart level and check all of them because there's issues on quite a few of them. I said I've identified several of them, but somebody needs to go through and really check each one.
Okay. Mike, would you be willing to forward me some of those emails that you've sent to him, just so I can have a list of we'll look at all of them, but
sure,
ones that you're pretty sure are not compliant.
Sure, I'll be happy to.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, that's all I've got for that.
Okay, thanks. Any other thoughts? Randy, your hand is not raised the second time, is it?
No, I'm sorry. I'm operating on my phone, so I'm unfamiliar with how this works. So
just keep it up perpetually. That's fine. We'll just keep calling. Jessica, do you know? I hear inklings of extending the road diet further south on Merriman. Is that no? Okay.
No. That was looked at, and at the time we decided that it was not in our best interest to try to push it. It could be a future project, but I think we're quite a bit away from there.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Jared, your hands up.
Sorry if this information is readily available and I just don't know the right place to look for it, but was wondering if there is like a good place to look at where future intended road diets may be targeted.
Oh, no, there isn't. And off the top of my head, I cannot think of any other places that we have any intention other than College and Patton.
In my own head, I had speculated wildly about Biltmore Avenue down by the tourist stadium. I didn't know if you speculated wildly about that.
Actually, now that I said that, I am retracting. We have corridor studies that we did for Biltmore, McDowell, and Tunnel Road. How could I forget? Are those on here? No, they aren't. I will add those corridor studies to the bottom of our agenda.
Really cool. Appreciate that so much. I'm sorry, I barely know how to work this contraption in front of me.
It's totally fine. Yeah. And then aside from that, I don't think that there's anything else. Randy?
Yeah, sorry. So two things. One thing I think that we did as a Multimodal Transportation Commission recommend that the road diet does go all the way down to road treatments. Not say road diet, road treatments for bikes and pets go all the way down to I-240. So even though there's no plans right now to continue that road diet, we did recommend, and I think we stand by the recommendation, that we really want to see improvements to making that a more bike and pedestrian friendly corridor. So that still stands. And then the second thing is, you're right, Biltmore McDowell, the recommendation is for a road diet on either Biltmore or McDowell. The study didn't include either one, but it does say that it is recommended to have it on one side or the other.
Right. Right. Thank you, Randy.
And good catch. Road diet sometimes has a negative connotation. So roadway treatment design makes more sense. And we talked about the, bike lanes downtown is complete streets projects rather than just bike lanes. So, and Merriman,
Right.
if they're restriping, they're also trying to improve the curb ramps too. So it's not just a bike lane, it's accessibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Jessica, if you ever need a list of road diet options, just poll this committee and we'll give you a big list of possible candidates.
Y'all are gonna get me in trouble. Shameless plug for my future podcast fame, but Matt Piken and I did an interview, or he interviewed me, I should say, and it just was posted this morning. That's what Jack was referring to. So Matt Piken's podcast, The Overlook. It was very enjoyable. We talked a lot about everything you guys love and what I love too. So about 30 minutes. I would recommend listening to it if you haven't already.
Randy, did you have something else?
Nope, sorry. It doesn't. The hand doesn't automatically go off on the phone, but it does on the computer. So I apologize.
Okay, just checking.
Okay.
Oh,
Elise.
Say again where we can listen to that podcast.
It's called The Overlook. Let me find the link, and I'll put it in the chat. Matt Piken used to be on BPR here, and then he started his own podcast. Let me find it. And it's mostly, I think it's all Asheville centered stuff, and he has done interviews with other city staff about things. Like I know he's done one with planning and urban design director Stephanie Dahl, and he's very good at both sides of the equation.
Thank you. Thanks for
Hold on.
introducing us to that podcast.
Yeah, okay, here we go.
Well, thanks
Does that
for that
work?
update. Yeah. And thanks, Randy, for pushing DOT to be their best selves. Well, that's it on our agenda list. The next is general committee updates. Lucy, if you want to jump in and talk about Greenway from November 2nd, there was a lot. There was a full agenda. There was a lot to talk about. If you're here, Lucy. If not, I've got the agenda.
I barely remember. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so long ago. We did talk a lot about the Active Transportation Committee, and looking forward to the action today from you all. And yeah, Leanna, what else did we talk about? Anna, if you're here.
I think
Swannanoa?
some of the big things. So the Swannanoa, the MPO is managing a feasibility study from Meadow to Swannanoa River Road intersection. That's happening. It's a quarter mile, a very complicated quarter mile. The Nasty Branch Greenway, where there's a planned tour that was talked about at the top of this meeting, it was shared with the Greenway Committee, the interpretive signs that have been developed in conjunction with residents of the South Slope, and they look fabulous, and they are available on the city's website. There are so many panels, y'all, and so much interpretive information about the history of Asheville and the history of that neighborhood specifically, and it's and community leaders. And I would highly encourage everybody to go take a deep dive. That you can either look at it on the website, or they're also on display at the Grant Center. So go take an interpretive experience. And then the East Patton Streetscape Plan on November 29th, apparently there is an official stakeholder engagement and public input meeting. And so that would be an important thing to be aware of, although I don't have time or additional information on that.
Leanna, Mike and I are your designees on that.
Woo-woo. Great. Let us know if there's a need for anybody else to show out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
There will be a public meeting as well as a steering meeting, Joe and Mike, on, I believe it's the 27th of November. I will make sure that an invitation sent to everyone in Multimodal. It will be at the Harrah's Cherokee Center from 5 to 7. So I will make sure that invitations go out to the MMTC.
And Lucy, it's on November 29th. It's a Wednesday.
Oh, see? I don't know why you, but yeah, 29th, that's right, Wednesday. Sorry about that.
Just a plug for the Swananoa River Greenway. That's where I taught my kid to ride a bike. So on the section by Walmart. So thanks for extending that a little bit further. Yeah, the Nasty Branch Greenway is amazing, and I applaud the city for integrating public art into a lot of these projects. I think it really shines a light on the creativity of our city and also the history of these neighborhoods. So great work on that. Jared, if you're here, did you want to talk about planning and zoning? Is there anything from the November 9th meeting that is relevant or you want to bring up? If not, looks like, well, I don't have meeting minutes from any of the other committees, but anybody from Transit or the Neighborhood Advisory Committee? I don't think the Aesthetics Committee from I-26 is doing anything active right now, but floor is open. Great, Elise?
Neighborhood Advisory Committee didn't have any transit or greenway related things at our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Last chance for staff updates, list of projects. Lucy, anything we should know about? Jessica, are we hiring a new transportation director anytime soon?
Yes, eventually. I don't know who it will be, but we'll find out.
And we make a push for hiring internally, moving people up the ladder?
Well, I can tell you that I plan to apply for the position, but it's also going to be posted, nationally. So, yeah, there could be some stiff competition out there for sure.
So is Ken retired? Is retired?
Yeah. It's sort of new news, and it's not, widely publicized or anything. But yes, Ken is retiring at the end of this year. So they are going to do a recruitment process that will kick off, I think, the end of this week. But it'll probably be, I'm guessing, a few months at a minimum.
Well, great. 1 minute till 5. Anybody have any last minute items to bring up or talk about? If not, I'll recommend a motion to adjourn. And just our next meeting, December 13th, be there or be square.
Yep. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for,
Thank you.
and yeah, Jack, just one more thing. Jack did mention at the beginning of this meeting how well this committee shows up for every meeting. And I think that's kind of a new thing. I think not usually, but sometimes it's like, oh, we don't have quorum today, so we can't vote on anything. So it's really refreshing to have such an engaged committee. So thanks everybody for continuing to show up. And with that,
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks,
Great.
y'all.